So today I have a special treat to share with you all. It is a coaching session from start to finish in video form, video and audio form. So you get to come in and join the conversation between me and my client from start to finish and get an inside look at what coaching is all about, what happens in a coaching session. And I have my friend and client, Martina, Kelades, to thank for this because she has so graciously offered me this opportunity to come on her podcast, the Life Out Loud podcast. You can get that anywhere that podcasts are airing, to record our coaching session on air. So you're about to see a coaching session in its entirety. And it's exciting because a lot of people don't really understand what coaching is and how it works. So bear in mind, this is an example of a coaching session. There's a lot of different ways it can look. No two sessions are ever the same, but this can give a taste of what happens in a coaching session. And if you're interested in learning more about what it is I do as a coach and how to work with me directly, you can reach out to me on here. You can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. My handle's right above me here. You can reach out to me on my website, MischaelaRichter.com. I would love to hear from you. And I applaud Martina for her bravery and her vulnerability for agreeing to do this. Martina's actually a high school friend of mine. We go way back. And she's also the owner of Life Out Loud Mental Health Consulting. So she's all about how to live your life from a place of conserving and caring for your mental health and wellness. So if you'd like to know more about her, you can find her at her website, which is lifeoutloud.ca. And you can check out her podcast. Like I said, Life Out Loud. You can find that on iTunes or anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And I look forward to hearing what you think about this. If you have any thoughts or questions or this brings anything up for you, don't hesitate to reach out. Drop a comment below. Whatever works for you. I'm here, ready and waiting to hear from you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the video where you will get to see this coaching session in action.
Welcome back to the Life Out Loud podcast. I just want to let you know that I am so grateful that you are tuning in with me today. Being a new podcaster and having a new show on a platform where there are so many podcasts to access makes me even more appreciative for my listeners. So I just want to acknowledge that you being here right now in this space and spending your precious time with me means so much. All right, so it's about to get real, y'all. Like sitting in a coaching session, kind of real. I am so excited to announce a special and perhaps maybe even a monthly episode on the Life Out Loud podcast that brings you into some of the real and raw conversations I have with my life coach. And this idea came from, several conversations that my coach, Mischaela, Richter, and I have had recently. And one of those conversations that we've had particularly around my transition from my full-time career to starting a business. We talked a lot about vulnerability lately and really how her coaching has been a huge part of that movement into my entrepreneurial journey. And so I wanted to open up the conversation to this platform for a couple of reasons. One, to give listeners a glimpse into what coaching is and perhaps what it may look like. And two, to share with you in a real and authentic way my personal challenges around business development and how important it is that we focus on taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of other things in our lives, such as our business, our family, and the many other areas in our lives that we nurture. I started coaching to first help organize and sort of some of the tangled mess that I felt prevented me from taking a leap from where I was to where I wanted to go. And at the time of my earlier coaching days, I found myself stuck in this deep valley, and I really wanted to reach the mountaintop, but I knew that there was some work that I needed to do before getting to that point. And so aside from my therapy sessions, which provide me with the space to talk about some of the psychological pain I was working through. I found my coaching sessions offered me the space to work on personal development, such as my confidence and boundary setting, self-care, those tools that I needed to help me move to the next stage of my life. And so I am thankful that I have my coach in my corner who provided me with perspective when I couldn't get out of my head and see different. I'm thankful for my coach for providing a safe space for me to explore some of those insecurities that perhaps I have avoided to address because no one really wants to acknowledge where they're insecure. And I am thankful for my coach who has guided me and cheered me on through this whole journey of starting a business. And maybe one of these days I'll share with you some of the notes from our initial session. I'm actually kind of curious to go back and look at them myself, so you can see just how far I've come and the growth that I have experienced from being coached. And let me tell you, there are some emotional and uncomfortable moments in coaching, but the truth is, whatever makes us uncomfortable is our biggest opportunity for growth. And I attribute that opportunity to starting Life Out Loud. So you may be wondering, what is coaching about? And this is what my coach says. Coaching is about clarifying your greatest strengths, your core values, and help you uncover what brings rich fulfillment in your life. When you get clear on these aspects of yourself, it brings true purpose to your actions and allows you to have a greater impact on your life and the lives around you. Along the way, you may come up against some blocks, old habits or patterns that have been keeping you stuck in some areas of your life. This is so normal. And part of coaching is exploring ways to work through those blocks to get to the juicy stuff on the other side. The coaching experience is deeply rooted in listening. And Mischaela listens for limiting beliefs, entrenched thought patterns, and what is truly important to you. I am so happy to have Mischaela Richter, my life coach, on the episode today. So here we go.
Here we go.
Hey, Mischaela.
Hi, Martina. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your willingness and openness to being on this show and trying, I guess, this unconventional method of coaching. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I appreciate that. And I just want to share with listeners too, because we had a quick chat before coming in and I had asked the question, like, how are you feeling about this? And I'll let you share maybe how you're feeling, but I didn't, as I mentioned before, I didn't really acknowledge that there could be some feelings of fear from your end. Like for me, I was just thinking about myself. It's like, oh my gosh, this is scary. Like I'm putting myself out there in another real and vulnerable way. But as a coach, it's yeah, there's some fears that you may carry as well. So
yeah, and it's interesting. I'm glad you asked because I had those moments of self-doubt in the days leading up to this. And as a coach, I'm not here to preach from the mountaintop about how to live life. Like I'm in it too, right? So however, I have the tools to observe and have an awareness around what's going on with me mentally and emotionally. So as I'm observing this self-doubt come up, I'm exploring it and just recognizing that ultimately I know I'm a good coach and I can trust that. And so just instead of focusing on the self-doubt thoughts, I focus on the trust thoughts. So this is a new experience for both of us, and we'll just go into it with trust and no expectations and see what comes out of it, which is what I do in every session, really.
That's it.
Yeah. You never know where the session's going to take us.
Well, and it's so true because even when we talked about doing this, it's like, it's just going to be like a regular coaching session, except we're going to have mics in front of us.
Except with mics and cameras. And
right?
No pressure.
and I totally,
and an audience.
And an audience. But I was like, oh, this is going to be so easy. It's not even a big deal. But now that I think about it, it's like, I mean, there are additional elements within the environment that can either distract or that can make us feel a little bit, insecure or like not so confident. And I never really thought about that before. I'm just like, oh, they're just mics. We're here. And my producer, of course.
Yes, and an additional body in the room. Yeah, it's that self-awareness that comes up whenever there's a camera in your face or a mic in front of you. Suddenly there's the you that's speaking, and then there's a you that's watching you speak, and that can be from a place of judgment sometimes. So it's about recognizing that and just trying to integrate the two and be present.
Yeah.
So that's my plan.
Yeah, and that's my plan as well. So yeah, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna try it out. This is the first time. And so, yeah, let's jump into it.
Ready to dive in?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God. Here we go. So Martina, what would you like some coaching on today?
So, as always, this is a question that we always begin with. And this is actually my first session back being coached in a little bit, taking some time off. And so I guess in reflecting about that, around that, I think what I'd like to talk about is kind of, I'd like to explore vulnerability again.
Always more to explore there.
Oh my gosh, all the time. And fear, and just kind of looking at how this journey has transformed, just even who I am today, and transform my business, which is still continually to be transformed. Like now I'm in a different place since I was the beginning of our coaching session. Like this post-pandemic period is also bringing up a little bit of kind of, I don't know, uncomfortable feelings because, well, there's a lot of uncertainties, and so just kind of thinking about how this is affecting my business and even not just my business, but myself. Like, because if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not, focusing on those things that I need to do in order to move my business forward, then, why? It's not going to be as effective. I'm going to burn myself out, or, so.
So to be clear, you're bringing up the topic for coaching. The topic is you want to explore fear and vulnerability. So what specifically about that do you want to explore?
Well, I think I've been looking a lot at the impact that fear has kind of shown up in many areas, like recently, especially around the pandemic. Fear about the future, fear about how my business is going to look, and then I think the fear around will it survive? And my business has been focused around like working within organizations in the work environment, and now that even looks so different. And so there's this fear of, do I have to change my whole business plan again? Like my business is not only, but just over a year, old. So it's still a new business. And usually it's like 5 years it takes to kind of get
things up and rolling.
Yeah, and get the flow of your business. But yeah, I haven't even made it there. Now I'm like having to reconsider everything that I've kind of thought I knew about what I'd be doing within my business. So that there's a little bit of fear around that as well.
I'm curious, what is your relationship with fear and vulnerability currently?
That's a really good question. My relationship with it, it's a love-hate relationship. especially vulnerability. Like I've been talking a lot about that recently, in different platforms, and the love part comes because I know that it is essential. It is, a significant part of our existence. So I am very conscious to not numb those feelings, vulnerability and fear, and really work to cultivate how to be courageous and how to really lean into what I'm feeling. Oh, the hate part comes from the feeling. Like I really I am so uncomfortable by it because, as we've talked about in many of my sessions before, I just like to control everything. I just want things within my control. And when you're not able to do that, or you feel like you are out of control, that's a really scary feeling. And so the fear certainly comes from a lot of the uncertainty, feelings of I can't control a lot of what's happening outside of of me, and I can't control the things that are happening within businesses and or workplaces. I can't control any of that. But I can control how I respond. So that's I guess one thing I can focus on.
So when we think about this love-hate relationship, you want to explore your relationship with this to what end? What's the goal here when it comes to your relationship with fear and vulnerability?
I don't know if my goal actually makes sense. My goal, like, as you were asking that question, I'm like, what is my goal? Like, my goal would be to get comfortable with it. But I don't know if is like...
Comfortable with the discomfort?
Yeah. Can you actually do that? I don't know. Like, maybe I have moments where I feel comfortable with doing that, but there will always, I feel like there's always going to be something.
Another layer.
Yeah.
So you know, the goal, when we talk about goals comes up a lot in coaching. I picture it almost like the high beams on the car versus the headlights. Right? So the high beams we can see really far in the distance, and with the headlights we just see what we need to see for right now. Right?
Yeah.
Or another analogy is like the light from a lamp in a dark room, right? It's just where the lamplight is cast. That's what we want to focus on. So for this session, when I ask what's the goal in terms of exploring your relationship with fear and vulnerability, it's about where can you expand that? Right? Where do we expand that how can we expand that relationship? What's the point of observing this if it's not to grow and learn and lean into, right?
That's right.
So when you bring up that idea of, you said becoming more comfortable with it, I'm curious how that could look. What does that even mean? How do we become more comfortable with fear and vulnerability?
I think first, for me, it's about acknowledging it more, seeing it more. So then you feel it more. But who wants to feel it more? Like, really?
Yeah.
Who wants to feel it more? Raise your hands if you want to feel
more discomfort.
More discomfort.
Yeah. So there's a perspective on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we were to really clarify what's the current perspective you have around fear and vulnerability, there's this, part of that, which you already said, there's a love-hate, right? And there's a perspective of it's uncomfortable, and who wants to be there? So that's part of what's going on for you mentally,
right,
and internally when it comes to fear and vulnerability. So what I'm curious is, how do we expand that perspective in order to lean into it more? Does that make sense?
Looking at, like specific areas where this is really challenging.
Well, why is it useful?
Why is it useful?
Yeah. What's important about expanding that relationship with fear and vulnerability?
Well, definitely moves us towards a place that represents meaning and purpose in our lives. Like when I think about even, oh my gosh, our conversations before even starting Life Out Loud, like where I was just in this place of insecurity and, am I really an entrepreneur? Like, do I do I have the competencies, the tools, the resources to even start a business? Like, and even my perception of business owners, it wasn't me. And it was like, I didn't measure up to what I thought, you know, a successful business owner would look like or be. And, but I think stepping out into fear and into the unknown, while it was very uncomfortable, led me to where I am at today. And if I were to have avoided it, I probably would just return to work in another job, doing work that maybe I didn't find as meaningful.
Yeah.
So I can see it represented in my life before. And it's just like, sometimes I forget that even though I've I don't want to say accomplished it, but I've worked through it before, it's kind of like, okay, we're done here. Like, you don't need to show up anymore in my life.
Check. Yeah. Done that. Moving on.
Yeah.
So how can it continue to serve you?
I think that's it. I think it's just, it can help me look at where I want to go next. What is the next level within the work that I want to do? Because no one really wants to be stagnant. And I don't even know if I've felt like I've had the opportunity to be stagnant yet. Like I said, a year in, and now I'm like, this pandemic has really forced me to reconsider how I'm doing business again, and what I might have found as a need within organizations then has changed greatly, even within the year, in the last few months. So that in itself, it's like, okay, now I've got to do that kind of evaluation as well. Now I've got to have a different conversation with employers, and that's kind of scary, because it's like, okay, you're just getting comfortable with, you know, how you can add value within different organizations, and now it's like, well, that value still exists, but I don't think it's priority. Now it's kind of shifted a little bit. So
the reason I'm really digging into this fear and vulnerability thing is because first I want to explore what the relationship is, and then we can explore what we do with this practically moving forward.
Okay.
So right now, like at this point in the conversation, we've clarified that fear and vulnerability can be a useful tool to pointing you where there is an area of growth. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where is your fear and vulnerability? I know you've already said this, but let's get really specific. Where exactly is that showing up for you now?
Right now, I think a lot of it's probably within my confidence. Like the fear that I may not have enough right now to address the things that I need to address, or to do the work that I need to do. And I think a lot of that too just comes from not really giving myself a whole lot of space lately. And yeah, I've talked
I'm curious. I just want to pause you for a second. When you say I don't know if I have enough right now, enough what?
I don't feel like I sometimes have enough information, enough energy, personal energy. And so I think, as I mentioned, like not having the space, I think that's a huge contributor, because I know when I'm in that place where when I'm not feeling I have enough, that it comes from not giving myself that time to really just recharge, so that I do have the mental capacity to think about how I'm going to move forward in an effective manner. So right now I'm just kind of like feeling like I'm surviving, you know. And
what does that feel like physically?
It just show up. It's just physically tired. It's just stress, like just feeling like you're just trying to keep up. And through the quarantine period and this whole pandemic, I have had a lot of conversations with different organizations, and I've been asked to talk about mental health and the impact that COVID-19 is having on individuals. So I've been given lots of opportunities to share on different platforms and to put my business out there, but I feel like I'm just not doing enough of the work. And it, like, how do I say this? I feel like I'm not really preparing my own business for what it is I want to do. I feel like I'm just kind of responding to various needs. And I know I've talked about before about like just not, or feeling like my kind of lane is a bit broad, and just really trying to focus in on what organizations or what groups, what my kind of clientele looks like. And it's taken me some time to do that, but even amidst all of this, it's like any opportunity to have a conversation or to speak on something related to mental health, I'm doing it. So I'm still not really clear and focused on that group. So that can be exhausting. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, everyone can benefit from this. This is not about just one population group.
It sounds, sorry to interrupt, it sounds like there isn't quite a solid foundation there for you.
Yeah.
What does that bring up when I say that?
Well, it feels like I have it, and then sometimes it feels like it's shifting, and I'm just kind of like jumping onto the next one. It's kind of moving into my, you know what I mean? Like I just picture like these tiles like moving, and here I am like on this one, and I'm feeling stable. I'm like, okay, this is where it's at, but then that kind of shifts, and then it's like, oh, I got to get on another one. Like, so whatever is coming at me, where I feel it can be stable again.
Yeah. I'm picturing, tell me if this lands for you, but when you talk about that, I'm almost picturing like you're in a river and there's rocks in the river. And as the river rises and falls, different rocks are being covered by water. So you have to jump over to another rock.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because there's so much change happening.
There is, yeah.
And so there's so much vigilance required on your part to make sure you're standing on a place that is meaningful and useful. Does that land?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like my business is focused around mental health promotion. And because I just see it as being beneficial to anybody and everybody, it is hard for me to just kind of stay on one rock and be like, this is my place. This is it.
Yeah. If the river is mental health awareness, it's like, which vantage point in that river are you standing on?
Right. Yeah.
So something sorry.
Well,
what's
that's
that bringing
a visual.
up?
that's a visual I need to kind of keep in the back of my mind when I'm feeling like I'm shifting again, or preparing to jump.
What do you feel is the nature of the river right now? Is it calm? Is it raging?
No, it is not calm. That river is overflowing. There's just, oh no, this is how I'm feeling. Like, you say mental health and all ears are up. They're perked. Because
everyone has a mental state.
Yeah. And we've just kind of gone through like this collective trauma. And people are talking about it. And the more that we talk about it, the more people are requiring supports. Like, I'm getting a Google, what is it? Like when you have your Google page and you get like reports on like statistics and who's searching for you. And most of
analytics?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't know, they just send it to my email.
Yeah.
And I take a peek at it. But most of the time when my business is searched on Google, it's people looking for crisis support and mental health counseling. And where I'm more of a training business, I'm I'm not in that category of like therapeutic support or crisis counseling or anything like that. But it just kind of speaks, and the numbers have definitely increased recently. I just got a report the other day. And so it just kind of speaks to the environment, the landscape of, you know, and the need for these resources.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
and what does that bring up for you when you see
river? It brings up that river.
That raging river.
Someone throw me a floaty, please, or give me a tube so I can just kind of float.
Shout out to Guns Road.
Yes, Valley Girls here talking about. That's a memory, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel,
And so there's a visual right there. What would that be like to sit in a tubie and float down the river?
Oh man, that would be so amazing.
What does that shift?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, maybe it doesn't feel as urgent. But this is it. Actually, this just came to my mind. This is the basis of my business. My business is mental health promotion. My focus initially when I started this business was to really focus on promoting the wellness of people, talking about things that can really encourage and strengthen mental health on this end of the spectrum, so that it can hopefully minimize the potentially negative and significant outcomes on the other end, like the end when we're in crisis.
So it's like the prevention versus the cure.
That's right. Yeah. So my work is in the prevention field. So I've kind of like just in that image or that visual just associated the floating and to the prevention part, whereas I'm not feeling that right now. And so maybe it's just I'm feeling conflicted, even just not feeling aligned with what it is I want to do. Like, I know part of the work that I'm doing now is contributing to the prevention part, but I don't feel like it's enough.
Something that, just to play with that metaphor some more, something that's coming up for me, and see what this brings up for you, is standing on a rock is a very sort of rigid position in a way, whereas floating on a tube, there's more movement to it. There's more being with.
Yeah.
There's more sort of flow. What does that bring up?
That definitely speaks more to me, and where I want to be, even. And even like just, you know, it just acknowledges too that we're going to experience change, and that is a part of it. And so even just the flow, it's like moving with and being aligned to some of the changes in the environment.
Yeah.
And so like kind of that definitely resonates with me more so than,
I have to stand here.
And I will not move.
Yeah. This is my place. This is what I do.
Yeah, it is very rigid, actually. Yeah.
Right? Because we talked in a recent session, or one of the prior sessions, about your business plan. Right? This was my plan.
Oh my gosh.
Now what?
Yeah.
Right?
And it shall not be changed.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. That you know what? That's gonna be an exercise I gotta do. Is to go back and look at that plan.
So what's coming up here is like some permission to flow with the changing times.
And I have to. I mean, I guess if you look at any business, they're adapting to the current conditions, right?
Yeah.
So what makes me think that I don't need to. It's not that I don't need. I never thought that really, but at least just acknowledging that
it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's annoying sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just more annoying for me right now because I'm just like, can I just get it together? Like this was my year. I had so many opportunities, like contracts that I was like so excited for, like organizations that I'd be working with. And I'll never forget that day, Friday, March 13th, 2020. When I just saw everything disappear. Everything was canceling. And I just thought, I remember there was this sadness because I thought, I've worked so hard to get this and to work with these individuals and to be in a place where I can, provide that support. And then this thing and this virus, like, how dare you?
So there's some sadness, there's some anger, disappointment, I imagine.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember I had to, I think we had a conversation about grieving and loss, and that was one of the things I had to also acknowledge, that loss. And process, yeah. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, sometimes it feels like it. Oh my gosh, wow, that statement in itself has a whole different meaning.
Which statement?
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, nowadays.
Yeah. But
so we're talking about, there's a lot of emotions that came up. There's some resistance in that, like, God damn it, why?
Yeah.
And then there's the resistance, perhaps my words, but resistance against changing the plan, having to change the plan.
Yeah. Because I'm like, well, sometimes I think I try and convince myself that I must do training in person. And I definitely think it's better. I would much rather prefer to be in front of people talking about the things that we're talking about, because they're not, they're sensitive topics. They're, again, uncomfortable topics that are not commonly discussed in workplaces. And so I just feel like there's an element that's lost when it's done over Zoom or over the computer.
Yeah, so there's a belief underlying there.
There is, yeah.
What would you say that belief is?
That my work wouldn't be as effective. But we've been doing it. I think also I try and counterbalance that with what have you already been doing through this pandemic? Been doing Zoom sessions and having conversations and receiving feedback even about the effectiveness and how, people really responded to the discussion. And felt really like a part of it.
So what's another thing that might be true here when it comes to your impact in these current times?
Well, that I can also I know, and I just get so stuck in my head, like, but I want to be in front. I'm a people person. Like, I want people. I want to be in front of people. I want to see people.
What do you get from that? What's happening there for you?
It's an energy that is oftentimes reciprocated by the audience, and so I think that just kind of contributes to even a greater, more powerful, session or engagement. I've seen it many times, and that's a part of connection, and that's really a part of the mission here.
So then again, there's another belief here that connection, that deep connection, is only possible in real life. Something like that. How would you rephrase that?
Yeah, that definitely was something that I probably would have held more strongly prior to all of this happening. That you can't really connect online. And I think that's kind of been a conversation, like, just with social media and how we need to kind of get off our phones and devices and get into community and get into like being around people. But the two can exist.
So what's here for you now? You said that's a belief you used to have. What's shifted for you? What's here today?
Today it can be different. I do believe that. I think it's the resistance. It's the hesitancy. It's around like, and maybe I'm just kind of seeing it as it's gotta only be online. And perhaps there may be opportunity down the road to have it 50-50 or just not fully and completely in a digital space.
So if we imagine ourselves,
which I never really thought about before. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, girl. Take me out of my head again.
All right. Let's put ourselves back in the tube.
Okay.
We're back in the tube. We're floating down the Gaspereau River.
I love it.
There's cows. There's trees. Right. When you sit in that river, in that tube, in that river, what do you see around you right now in this visualization, in this metaphor?
What I see around me, I would definitely say lots of green space. Lots of green space. It's kind of like, well, the river is much lower, so there's like an embankment, and it's almost kind of like a feeling of being enclosed, but not fully enclosed. Basically,
there's a container.
There's a container, yeah. The air is clear. Oh my gosh. The air is clear and refreshing. Even the splashes of water that land on your face feel refreshing. Makes you feel alive. Yeah, you're just being carried by nature.
I love that. That sense of being carried, being held.
Yeah.
That brings up the word trust for me. What about you? What does that bring up for you?
I definitely would agree with that. Especially the fact that we're carried by Earth that has been carrying us for centuries, and it's just kind of like a feeling of I guess gratefulness that I'm here in this space and that I have an opportunity and to just trust in the process. And, I always used to say that and remind myself that is continue to hold the vision and trust the process. And had I not trust the process up until this point, who knows where it'd be? Like who knows?
So you had mentioned before control. And what's coming up for me here is the tension or the relationship between trust and control. I see those as almost like opposite sides of the same coin in a way, in this context here today.
Right.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
I kind of see it in that statement, actually. I hold the vision is my opportunity for control. That's what I control, is my vision. And trust the process is what is going to unfold.
That's the flow.
That is the flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you still get to have control.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah.
where do you place it?
Right. Oh, girl, that's deep. That is deep.
So,
oh my,
we've got about 15 minutes here. I'm curious,
Okay.
what's becoming more clear to you here?
That I'm in the process.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my vision, and I still have control over it, and I still, I'm able to adapt it and change it as that landscape also changes. But I also realize that I'm in the process now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in kind of that place where it is uncomfortable, and there's going to be a lot of doubt probably, but it's the trust that's going to carry me through. So yeah, this has been actually a really great, I'm going to call it a starting place for me. I'm going to call it a place of acknowledging, okay, I've identified what's happening and how I'm feeling, so that this is where we begin now. Now that I know, I can start to work and do differently and see things differently and treat myself differently too. Yeah.
So let's clarify that. Like, what does that look like?
Treating myself differently. Well, not being so hard on myself. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Not beating myself up for not accomplishing certain business tasks, or
Compassion,
yeah, self-compassion. And just really taking care, like making sure that I'm doing the things I'm doing to take care of myself, so that I can be effective in the process and not feel like I'm drowning in the process. And that's something I think that I think I could do a little bit better with. But when you're in a place of, and I know we've talked about this before, but even just feeling like you're constantly putting out fires. You're kind of just battling.
You're just in reactive mode.
Yeah. Or do we use that analogy? What is that thing at the fair?
The thing you hit.
Whack-a-mole.
I know what you mean.
Called?
It's like the strength test where
it
you hit the
whack-a-mole?
thing.
I don't really.
See, we know what we're talking about.
So that's actually even more so than the putting out the fires. But that's kind of how I feel. Like something pops up. It's like, oop, boop, we're gonna keep going. Oh, next, and then this is kind of where
whack-a-mole,
yeah. So then it's like you're constantly doing this, and then it's just you're expending all this energy and starting to like whack them a little bit slower, and that's like represented in like, I can even see it in my business activities, like just not even getting back to people as quickly as I probably should have. Oh, I just shit on myself. Yeah. You saw that one coming. I saw the look on your face. You're like, here you go.
Don't you do it. Don't you dare do it.
I did it. But
so it's watching out for the shoulds.
It's yes. Stop shitting on yourself.
Yeah. Watching out for where you're condemning yourself, being hard on yourself.
Yeah. I actually, that reminds me, I sent an email to someone, and I saw a reply that they had, like, automated reply that just communicated that they wouldn't be getting back right away. Like the response time has been even longer because of other things that they're dealing with. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can give myself permission to do that.
100%.
As well. Yeah, it never occurred to me that it's something you could do, but yeah, to give myself more space.
Yeah.
Like I keep talking about this, but
so what are the signs, like moving forward, what are the signs that it's time to pause and check in?
When my mind does not stop. Like when I'm laying in bed at midnight thinking about what I didn't do, what I didn't accomplish, how I didn't reach out to that person, how I have all this stuff to do the next day.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a huge sign.
I'm thinking of
indicator.
remember some saboteurs we've uncovered in the past
Oh
of
my
yours,
goodness.
and there's the lady with the arms on the hips.
Yes.
Superwoman.
Oh my gosh. I must do it all.
I will vanquish all mental health issues.
That's right.
I will save everybody and be everything for everyone.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yes.
So it's about recognizing when she's taken the wheel
Right.
of your life.
That's right. And I think she's probably even showed up recently because of just the magnitude of the issues that are that are just kind of so prevalent right now.
So it's about sometimes remembering that you can take that weight off your shoulders and set it down. Like, how does that feel when you feel like you're standing in the river and you're seeing this crisis and all these issues in the world? Like, how does that feel to you?
Overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
It actually makes me want to dive under.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, no, this is too much. I'm about to go deep under and avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back up for air.
Mm-hmm.
But it just feels like it's just all consuming.
Mm-hmm.
And
So I wonder if that visual of the tube can help in those moments of like, I get to just float. I don't have to stand here and try to hold back the river.
Yeah, that's so hard though. Like when you're considered a leader in a certain field, and that you must lead, and people look to you for different things. Like even I think about like the many conversations I've had recently, even around anti-Black racism and discrimination and what's happened in Minneapolis, and so like sometimes even that, like the expectation that you are to share, you're to provide some kind of leadership or some kind of narrative around that experience because you're a Black woman or you are a mental health advocate. And yeah, sometimes it's like, but not that I don't want to be a part of the narrative or share, but sometimes I have to remind myself to allow myself to pause first instead of just jumping in immediately and sharing, but also like allow myself some reflection. And that's what I did with like what's excuse me, happening with the protests and with the racialized discrimination and anti-Black racism. Like I've had to allow myself time to pause and reflect and do some inward work before even like sharing much out loud.
It's about being where you are.
Right. Yeah.
That's what the floating is.
You told me that.
Yeah. The floating is you're on the river exactly where it is.
Right.
You're not trying to stand in one spot or hold it back. You're just wherever you are in that process.
That's right.
And being transparent about it when it feels appropriate for you.
Right. Like on this coaching cast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's all transparency here. But no, you're absolutely right. And
so that's the checking in.
That is it.
Where am I right now? What is my capacity right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And knowing that you're staying with it, you're still floating, you're still on the river. In whatever way you're able to show up in that moment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A lot to unpack here. Which I'm really happy for. I'm grateful for this.
So just to finish it out here, what exactly do you see yourself doing as a result of this conversation?
Pausing. That's really the only action I want to focus on right now. Just to pause. Check in with myself. Even pause certain aspects of my business. But pausing for my own space and wellness, you know.
How will you remember to pause?
Oh, when I'm like going through my head of 1,000 things I need to do and what I need to do and how it's, I need to somehow, wish I could get like a zap or something every time I start with these negative emotions. Okay.
Yeah. You haven't breathed in 30 seconds. Time for a pause.
Yeah. Maybe that's something I can think about too. How to recognize when it's time and
I wonder
and what to do in that space.
I wonder if there's something like maybe setting an alarm on your phone.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's better than a zap,
right?
I
Just,
could do that.
Just set an alarm at some point in the day. Have you pause today? How does that sound?
I think that's a good place to start. I'm gonna try.
Well, thank you so much for your courage and for sharing all of this today.
Thanks for your guidance and cheering me on and
Well, you got this. You're doing the work. And you are a leader and you are a support, and like you gotta put that oxygen mask on yourself.
This is it.
Before you put it on others. So
that's right.
It's just taking the space for that.
Absolutely. Thanks, girl.
You're welcome. So what do you think of that? There it was, a coaching session in its entirety. I'm curious if that brought any thoughts up for you, any questions, anything at all. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you'd like to work with me, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, my website at mischaelarichter.com. And if you feel that there's something missing in your life, but you don't know what it is, I have a tool that can help you with that. It's an exercise that's going to help you pinpoint the area of your life that needs your attention and how to create some action around that, how to get started on the very first steps. So if you would like to check that out, it's free. So you can get your own copy of that. It's in the link in the video description below. And I hope you take me up on that because it's a great first step to self-awareness and personal development. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I'm always here if you have anything to ask me or any comments. And if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, give the video a like, share it with your friends. We want to get the good word of personal development out there to everyone.